What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Vanguard. Great, beautiful morning here in Kansas City. Enjoying this fall weather. Sun is shining. How you doing, Zach?
Doing fucking good, man. As you said, great morning. Went for a nice, lovely walk around the West Bottoms today. Really got to, we like the West Bottoms because it's just, it really does kind of feel like a 1950s, like industrial kind of area. There were packages moving across the, shipping things, trucks going in and out, trains moving. We're just walking around, taking it in. Really great way to start the day. Excited to be back in action with like a real Vanguard show today. Got a lot of news stories to cover. Got a guest coming later on in the show. It's going to be, Vanguard by the numbers, and I'm pumped for it.
Absolutely. We got a great show for you guys planned today. Hope you all enjoyed the crystal ball interview from a couple days ago. That was super exciting. But yeah, we're back in action, back on the mics with a good old Vanguard live stream for everyone. Welcome back to the show, everyone. Make sure to hit that like button if you're just tuning in. Really helps the algorithm. And again, shout out to everyone that's already commenting along in the chat. Always appreciate seeing your guys' feedback. So really appreciate it. And yeah, we do like to start with a bit of a weather report here on the Vanguard. So glad you enjoy that, Jill.
We wear our Lynchian influence on our sleeves.
Exactly. But yeah, what's up, everyone? Thanks for trickling in. And again, I'll remind you, hit that like button if you're just tuning in. Really great way to help us beat the algorithm. And also, we do like to start and end all of our shows with a big old shout out to the patron community. Thank you guys so much for the support on Patreon. We would not be able to do the show without the patron support. So it really, really, really is appreciated. The link is going to be in the description as always. If you're interested in supporting our work and becoming a member of our patron community, again, the link's always going to be in the description. Even just a few bucks a month really, really helps, guys. We don't take any money from sponsorships or anything like that. 100% viewer funded, and that's the way we like it. So again, thanks so much for the support on Patreon.
Yeah, absolutely. You're not going to see us selling gold or fucking wallets or any other kinds of bullshit to you at the beginning and end of our shows. Just the, love and support that we have for the people in, our comrade and Vanguardians. Of course, you're all comrades to us. Quickly, though, Gavin, I had an anecdote about woke culture that I wanted to ask you about. Here at the Vanguard, we've taken like a pretty neutral stance on woke culture. If it tracks, we're with it, and if it doesn't track, then we kind of sneer at it and make fun of it. And I think that's the way to go, right? Like obviously, if there's a fundamental injustice, you need to address it, and that's good. That's progress. That's what we're all about here on the left, equality. But sometimes, man, it'll just take you out of a moment. And you're like, wow. We're really living in the year 2022 now. And I wanted to give you this example from last night. We haven't talked about it yet, Gavin. But last night I was at a show. And the opener was this guy named IDK. And he's like, he's a rapper. He's like trying to get the crowd all like hyped up. But every like in between his songs, like he would just be like, all right, everybody, now let's make sure that we're like making sure that nobody's falling down, like look to your left, look for your right, like all this kind of stuff, like just like he's a school crossing guard. And then he would be like doing shit like, I just want everybody to know that I'm about to do a freestyle, and these violent words are not, this is serious. He's not making a joke. He's like, this is not directed at anybody in the crowd. And then it'll just go down and he'll be like, I'm gonna fucking kill all you motherfuckers, let's get all this fucking shit, I'm gonna fucking, and you're just like, why did you do that? Like bring back the antagonizing the crowd. Like what is going on here? I just thought it was so strange. They're all like, all these performers are all like pissed, scared that they're going to get like astro worlded and that like something's going to happen. And it's just like, wow, like I've never been one that's like bitching about how like woke culture, like, impacts these guys, but like, let's just let rappers be rappers. Like you're going to go to a rap show, they're going to say some mean shit. The funniest thing he did was when he was like just kind of like talking shit on Kansas City. He was like, yo, I bet the crowd in Indianapolis was more lit than this because that's the one team that's beat the Chiefs this year. But like, it was just funny because every time he would do something like, oh yeah, guys, let's just make sure we're all still vibing. Man, very interesting.
That's funny. Are you sure it wasn't ironic? It almost sounds like it was a bit like, this is all about peace and love. Fucking engage you all, motherfuckers. Like, you're sure it wasn't at all ironic?
I don't think it was about, I don't think it was at all. It was deadpan. And that's why it was just like so weird. We were all like looking at each other like, do you legally have to say this? Is your label making you do this shit now? Like, I have no idea. I just thought it was so funny because you have that in like juxtaposition with like Pusha T, who's like just straight up rapping about like selling dope on every song. I just thought it was like very weird to see that. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm just being a boomer.
That's funny. Well, it is true that obviously a lot of people, especially on the right wing, clutch their pearls way too much and pretend to care too much about woke culture and all that stuff. But I do think hip hop is one of those genres and one of the examples of a place where woke culture, I just don't think is super welcome. Like, going back to the original, 90s hip hop artists, I guess that's not the original, but you know what I mean? Like some of the biggest hip hop stars from the 90s, guys like Snoop Dogg, guys like Eminem. I mean, these motherfuckers were spitting filthy bars, super problematic shit. And a lot of people were like trying to cancel them back in the day and trying to be like, oh, this is so problematic and so, misogynistic and so homophobic. And my approach has always just been like, art is art. Let them express themselves how they want. I think most people understand that these rappers or musicians are kind of playing characters and they're kind of, over emphasizing the aggression in their lyrics for entertainment value. And I always appreciate that. I mean, gangster rap, for example, obviously includes a ton of violence and misogyny and all that stuff. But like, it's not like most people that listen to it, at least not me, actually internalize those values. It is more just about entertainment and playing that character. So I've always thought that when people try to woke scold rappers, it's super annoying.
Yeah, it's kind of like, oh, playing too much GTA 5 is going to make you go steal cars and beat people to death with baseball bats. It's like, I don't think so, pal. But yeah, I just thought it was so funny, like the just intense juxtaposition, because the guy was, I don't know, it was just very interesting. I was like, oh, this is how rap shows go now, I guess. This is interesting. But with that said, I was just, I don't know. I just thought that was really interesting and interesting, like cultural phenomenon. It's like all these artists, like, and this is a small time guy. He's not like fucking huge, whatever. Push is obviously way bigger, but they're all worried about being Astroworld, and none of them want to have a Travis Scott incident where somebody, because they blame the artist, like they don't blame the venue for being irresponsible. But anyway.
Right. Well, yeah, like Alex says, I'm for crowd safety. Called me a tanky but tiny at concerts. I don't think anyone would call you a tanky for saying that, first of all. But also, yeah, I mean, obviously everyone's in favor of concert safety. But this concert that Zach's talking about was at the Truman, which is a pretty small venue in Kansas City. I don't think anyone's ever been hurt there, or let alone died there. It's not the kind of venue where that kind of shit pops off, at least to my knowledge. So it sounds like they may have been, trying a little bit too hard to make sure all their bases were covered.
Yeah, it was just also funny because there were like maybe 200 people in the room. It was just like, it was like a basketball game. It's like, everybody, let's check on your neighbors. I'm like, this isn't, Woodstock 99. But anyway, yeah. What was the first story that you wanted to go ahead and plow into today, Gavin?
Well, speaking of hip hop and problematic rappers, Christina, thank you so much for the $4.99. Looking forward to your take on Kanye. Yeah, this was some crazy shit. I guess we can start with that if you want, Zach. I saw this. Thank you so much, Christina, by the way, for the super chat. And if it hasn't already become apparent to you guys, Kanye has totally gone off the deep end. He's a total right-wing shill. And it looks like he may even have replaced his old boo Kim Kardashian with Candace Owens. Just kidding. I think Candace Owens is actually like married, so I don't think these are I don't think they're an item necessarily. But this picture almost definitely suggests that. I mean, they're holding hands, it appears, and spotting matching shirts. This is like the racist Republican version of those Disneyland shirts where it's like Minnie and Mickey, that you see like cringy Disney adults wearing at the theme parks. Anyway, white lives matter. So, Kanye coming all out against the Black Lives Matter movement. Of all the things to come out against, imagine coming out against Black Lives Matter, just like a movement against police brutality. So what, are you in favor of police brutality? Is that the message I'm supposed to receive from your statement? And some people I think have made, I don't know, some people I think have made decently good faith criticisms of the slogan Black Lives Matter. I've never shared them, but I think some people are coming at it from a good place, and they say like, well, Black Lives Matter doesn't include indigenous people because they're not black, or Black Lives Matter doesn't include Hispanic people because they're not technically black, they're brown. So some people have tried to kind of like retcon it and make it all lives matter, which is kind of cringy, admittedly, but at least that actually encompasses the idea that like Black Lives Matter isn't inclusive enough. All lives matter. Here, the slogan that Kanye and Candace are going with is just white lives matter, which is like, yeah, bro, no one's like, it's just, again, you can't criticize Black Lives Matter as a slogan for not being inclusive enough, and then your preferred slogan is white lives matter, which is just as exclusive.
Oh, Yeah. So, Kanye. You know, it's like you can never expect anything but the worst from Kanye at this point. He's just fucking fallen so low. It's like, I mean, the guy used to make. He used to rap often about police brutality, right? Like, face it, Jerome get more time than Brandon. All these kinds of George Bush doesn't care about black people. Like, so many times that has this man made a accurate, like a political statement. But ever since, I don't know, the Trump thing and, I don't know, his whole like post Jesus era, I would say it's just been nothing but like fat L's. And I think that he's just doing anything to be provocative at this point. He's just doing anything to be incendiary. He's just doing anything to, you know, stay relevant, right? I mean, he's really at that stage of his career where his music, I mean, I don't want to come down too hard on Kanye for his music, because he did, I mean, 4 years ago isn't that long ago, and he did have the summer of releases where he produced all that. Like, he produced Daytona, he produced the Tiana Taylor album, he produced a lot of shit, including his own, which was mids. But ever since then, I feel like he's really fallen off. Oh, Kid See Ghost was also really good. That came out the same year. But, the Jesus is King, and then the Donda and all that kind of shit, like, he's really fallen off hard. So I just don't think he's able to capture that kind of energy and turn those heads with his music anymore, which is a bummer, because from a musical perspective, there's just no denying that the dude's a genius producer, and his rapping's pretty good when he decides not to sing too much. So yeah, I mean, I think that that's what this is. I don't think that there's any like real political alignment between Kanye and the right, other than the fact that he knows he's going to get a lot of fucking press for doing this. He doesn't, no press is bad press, right? Like, that's Kanye's whole outlook on the world. And I think he's just doing this to stir the pot, make people angry, and keep, everyone knows that Black Lives Matter was a scam. Now it's over. You're welcome. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, the sad thing about this is that the actual Black Lives Matter organization was kind of a scam, because they ended up pocketing a lot of the money that was sent to them from Americans that were genuinely concerned about police brutality and trying their best to fight back. Some of the leaders of the Black Lives Matter movement, like the actual like LLC Black Lives Matter, not just like people in the streets, but like the actual company, they actually did turn out to be kind of grifters. A lot of them just took that money and bought like a huge house and stuff like that. But that's the organization, and Kanye in no way clarifies that that's what he's talking about here. It's not like he says, oh, these people from the corporate Black Lives Matter are scam artists. No, he's just saying Black Lives Matter in general, which Black Lives Matter originated before there was ever a corporate entity associated with it. It was actually just a call from activists, a kind of resistance to, again, police brutality and the disproportionate police brutality that African-American communities face. So again, it's like, what about it was a scam? Assuming you're not just talking about the organization, which you're not, I don't think so. You're just talking about it as like a cultural call for justice. What about it was a scam? Like, do you think that cops should be able to murder Black people in the streets? Like, is that your position? I'm serious. Like, do you think that, cops should be able to brutalize American citizens and murder unarmed people? Because that's what Black Lives Matter fights back against. That's what that protest movement was all about. So again, I'm just like, what is your problem with it? You're not explaining any sort of argument, any sort of a counter argument to the ideals or the principles of Black Lives Matter. You're just shitting on it because you know that the pandering to the right wing is where the money's at right now, I guess, or you're just too fucking mentally ill to know otherwise. I'm a little bit confused about all this, because I guess Kanye is doing it for money, but also it seems like he's probably lost out on a lot of the support that he had from normal people like you and I, that at one point did like Kanye and had no problem like buying his albums and stuff. And now we might feel a little more queasy about that. So again, it just kind of seems like this is all very weird.
Yeah, this was my favorite reaction. Like, I'm no sim for Jaden. He's kind of cringy a lot of the time, but yeah, I had to dip. LOL. Yeah, because this was at Paris Fashion Week, which is again why I just think it was a publicity stunt. I just think that And to answer your question, I think that what he's decided, and obviously through histrionic personality disorder, bipolar personality disorder, being massively rich and isolated from the world, all kinds of things that definitely contribute to his poor decision making. I think he's now totally in the vein where like he just sees himself as like Donald Trump sees himself. And that's a weird thing to say, but it's just like he wants to like have his shit everywhere. Like he's thinking about like the fact that he's like signing a deal with Gap and that now he's a billionaire. Like, I don't think he's worried about losing people like us on the margin, because he'll always have people that are into him as a spectacle, as like a piece of popular culture. You know what I mean? And I think that diminishes the sincere value. And like a lot of people aren't going to take his like real, authentic artistic achievements as seriously now. Like I don't think that people will be, necessarily as like, kind of like you said, running to buy, those, re-releases of The College Dropout, which is a seminal hip hop album, something that legitimately changed the sound of modern music. But now he's just reduced himself to something for cheap shock value. It's complete bullshit. So yeah.
Yeah. And it does appear that Kanye's spokesperson, Jason Lee, has quit working with him amid the White Lives Matter scandal. He's the host of Hollywood Unlocked and has left his position as head of media and partnerships for the Yeezy fashion designer 2 weeks before West sold a White Lives Matter shirt, wore a White Lives Matter shirt to his fashion show on Monday. Lee will focus on launching his own talk show. So he said that Kanye was gaslighting black people, which is kind of funny because Kanye's been doing that for a while. Remember under the Trump administration when he wore the MAGA hat and said that slavery was a choice? Like, this isn't necessarily a new development. But yeah, it still is just surreal to see Kanye West in a White Lives Matter shirt, looking like he's at a freaking CPAC conference or something. Just a total fucking loser, honestly. And you're right, Zach. I've never been as big of a fan of Kanye's music as you. I don't think he's like a genius and all that crap, but he's a good artist. Like I admire some of his earlier music. But you're right. He did have some pretty based moments, like when he said George Bush doesn't care about black people during the Hurricane Katrina aftermath, et cetera, et cetera. And now this is where he's at. It's just disappointing. And again, what a fucking loser.
Yep. 100%. Also, College Dropout does not suck. Joseph Bet, you're fucking crazy. Gangstar is also a legendary hip hop act, but that doesn't mean that Kanye is not good.
Yeah, he's not bad. He's just a little overrated in my opinion.
There's absolutely no way to feasibly argue that the beats that that first run of College Dropout, Late Registration, Graduation, those beats, nobody was making shit like that. I'm sorry, but it's true. He changed. Do you remember the entire like decade where like pop guys from like Coldplay and Maroon 5 were just hopping on hip hop tracks and doing the hook? Like, you can say you don't like that, but Kanye invented that.
Oh yeah, there's no denying he changed the game. I'm not denying that. I just don't think he's like a genius. Like people always love to call him a genius. I'm like, all right, bro. Like he's a good. I don't think he's any better than like any other great hip hop artist or even just good hip hop. But we don't have to fucking debate Kanye West. We don't have to debate Kanye West. I know you're passionate about this. I'm not trying to trigger you.
I get it. He's not for everyone, and surely his output has diminished. I just think that as a producer, particularly, like you could always point to like his whack rapping, but just as a producer, if you listen to the instrumentals alone, I think a lot of people would find that shit is very high level.
Oh, there's no denying some good stuff for sure. Anyway, Kanye cringe. I guess that's nothing new though. As I said, he's been on this path for a while. Something else I wanted to talk a little bit about is Elon Musk. It appears. Oh, by the way, thank you so much, Hysteric Raider. Really appreciate that. I think the fish sticks joke. Wait, what was the fish sticks joke? Was that a joke he made, or was it one that someone made?
Oh, here we go. It's the.
I think you're on mute, by the way, but
sorry, I was trying to find it. I didn't want to butcher the joke. It's like a South Park joke where like fish sticks at South Park. It was like a gay reference to Kanye, but I don't want to fuck it up.
Interesting. I do love South Park. I've probably seen that episode, to be honest. I just don't remember it. It's been a while since I've gone back and watched South Park. I love South Park. Such a great show. Speaking of woke culture, South Park is so much more defanged than it once was at this point, which is kind of a bummer. But anyway, one other thing I did want to talk about is Elon Musk, Mr. Elon Musk. To be honest, this took me by surprise because I said from the beginning that this was all bullshit and that it probably wasn't really going to happen and that everyone should pump their brakes and, wait before celebrating Mr. Musk's acquisition of Twitter. But it does appear that Elon Musk is going to proceed with the $44 billion purchase of Twitter, according to multiple outlets. Here, the AP says Musk is abandoning his legal battle to back out of buying Twitter and offering to go through with his original $44 billion bid for the social media platform. What were your thoughts about this, Zach?
Yeah, so I actually did like a test cramming dive on this like a day ago when I saw that this was actually happening, because I kind of thought that this was just going to go and fall by the wayside and that it wasn't going to actually happen. But I read this long fucking article where it was kind of like illustrating how easy it is for the uber rich to fundraise, right? Like how people were just, like there were texts from Joe Rogan like congratulating Elon Musk, saying like, thanks, like hope you get this, buddy, like we want you to have Twitter. And then like billionaires texting him like talking about like if they can get in on some of the equity from Twitter, and they'll be like, we could get maybe 10 15 billion to you if we can get like a slice of the pie when you own it. So just like everybody coming to Elon Musk basically like throwing money at him, and of all the people that he decided to take just a fuckload of money from, it was actually one of the not Prince Mohammed bin Salman, but another Saudi prince who I have no idea what his fucking name is. I just read it, and he's another Saudi prince, and he bought like I want to say it was like 50 million shares or something like that at like $50 a share or something astronomical. Anyway, it was a huge sum of money, billions and billions of dollars that he's just taking from like this like rich Saudi asshole. So this is not like a liberation of Twitter kind of a deal, right? He's taking money from the fucking mini empire, right? That was responsible for the death of Jamal Khashoggi, right? There's absolutely no freedom of speech in Saudi Arabia, absolutely nothing close to it. So that's the bedrock of what I was paying attention to. The fact that anybody who thinks that this is going to be like a fucking operation to expand the free speech of Twitter is just a fucking idiot. I'm sorry, but there's no other word for you.
Yeah, that's super ironic. Really, just the kind of the candle on the cake. It says the tumultuous saga of Elon Musk's on again, off again purchase of Twitter took a turnaround, a conclusion. Is it just me, or is this sentence way too wordy? The tumultuous saga of Elon Musk's on again, off again purchase of Twitter took a turn towards a conclusion. Whatever. After a mercurial Tesla CEO proposed to buy the company at an originally agreed on price of $44 billion. All right, AP. Musk made the surprising turnaround not on Twitter, as has been his custom, but in a letter to Twitter that the company disclosed in a filing Tuesday with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. It came less than 2 weeks before a trial between the two parties is scheduled to start in Delaware. In response, Twitter says it intends to close the transaction at $54 per share after receiving the letter from Musk, but the company stopped short of saying it's dropping its lawsuit against the billionaire Tesla CEO. And by the way, that's why he's actually, if he ends up going through with this, that's why. It's not because of like some principle. It's not because he cares about free speech. It's because it looks like he was going to lose this lawsuit against that Twitter was going to file against him if he didn't follow through with the contract. So, he's just basically worried about his own money now and losing this lawsuit. Experts said that makes sense given the contentious relationship and lack of trust between the two parties. I don't think Twitter will give up its trial date on just Musk's word. It's going to need more certainty about closing. So there's that, et cetera, et cetera. Musk's proposal is the latest twist in a high-profile saga involving the world's richest man and one of the most influential social media platforms. Much of the drama has played out on Twitter itself, with Musk, who has more than 100 million followers, lamenting the company was failing to live up to its potential as a platform for free speech and had too many bots. With some logistical and legal hurdles remaining, Musk could be in charge of Twitter in a matter of days, however long it takes him and his co-investors to line up the cash. A letter from Musk's lawyer dated Monday and disclosed by Twitter and security filing said Musk would close the merger signed in April, provided that the Delaware Chancery Court enter an immediate stay of Twitter's lawsuit against him and adjourn the trial scheduled to start August 17th. A law professor at Columbia said he's not surprised by Musk's turnaround, especially ahead of the scheduled deposition of Musk by Twitter attorneys starting Thursday that was not going to be pleasant. On the legal merits, this case doesn't look strong. It seemed kind of like a pretty simple buyer's remorse case. So basically, Musk was trying to back out of this whole deal by saying like, oh, like I actually, it's not that I'm backing out of the deal. It's that Twitter lied about having all these bots and they're overestimating the amount of accounts that were actually bots. And that's why I don't want to buy it, which is stupid because if you wanted to fix Twitter, then you would buy it and then get rid of the bots, right? Like you're about to be in control of it. If you care so much about the bots, then once you're in charge, then purge all the bots. Like if that's the problem, then you could pretty easily solve that. But no, it was clearly just an excuse for him to not go through with the purchase. However, it looks like the court here is kind of calling his bluff, and Twitter is kind of calling his bluff to be like, you think that's a strong argument? You think that's going to hold up in court, bro? Come try us. And he's like, so this kind of game of chicken is ending with him saying, all right, you got me. I'm not going to win this case. My stupid excuse about the bots is not strong enough to hold up in a court of law. Therefore, I'm going to be forced to go through with this. Again, this is not some principled stand in favor of free speech.
Oh, obviously. Nothing that this guy does is principled, guys. That's the deal. This guy's looking out for himself and nobody else. This guy's all about Elon. And yeah, he wanted all of the press and the attention from speculating about buying Twitter. And he wanted all the people that are like, yeah, stick it to the liberal elites, man, to fucking come out and get behind him and like be his cheerleaders and like really get the like libertarian Silicon Valley bro types up in arms and, you really feed them some red meat. But yeah, obviously he didn't want to actually go through with it. It's, I mean, another thing on his plate. I doubt it's going to make him a lot of money. Twitter has never been a very profitable business. So yeah, it was obviously a bad decision. He was out looking to flex. He was out looking to like clout chase essentially in his like embarrassing billionaire sense. Like one of the things that's most astonishing about Elon Musk is that the dude is so rich that you could just do whatever the fuck you wanted forever times like literal infinity. You would just never run out of doing whatever the hell you wanted. And yet he still just craves this like weird adulation from like random fucking people on the internet. Like he just needs the dopamine rush from seeing his tweet to pop up. It's like you give me 1/1,000,000th of this guy's net worth and I would never, like I would do the show with Gavin because I really like it, but like you would never hear me like fucking censor. There would be no like need to do anything. You wouldn't need anything from anybody else. It's just astonishing that this guy has so much and he's still just like so empty inside. It's, I guess the point I'm making, so vacuous.
Yeah, absolutely. And did you see his tweet too about like his ultimate plan to make like the everything app or something like that? He was like, this is my latest, this is the next step in the plan. Yeah, here we go. I'll pull it up. This is pretty dumb too. Buying Twitter is an accelerant to creating X, the everything app. So as many people have pointed out, that's never actually going to happen. Just like all of Elon Musk's lofty goals and big plans. Yeah. Okay, Elon Musk. I'm sure that that's actually something that'll happen, but it's just like the freaking Hyperloop that's going to connect Kansas City and St. Louis. Can't wait for that either. But anyway, like I said, I mean, I do have to say, I wasn't expecting this to happen at all. I was saying from the beginning that this is not going to happen, and it does seem that it is. Not the X app, but Elon Musk buying Twitter. It does appear that that's gonna go through. We'll still see. Maybe it's possible he still finds a way to weasel his way out of this one. But yeah, look forward to all the apps in one, Zach. The everything app. You're gonna be on Twitter and DoorDash and fucking Tinder all at the same time, bro. It's gonna be crazy.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for those self-driving cars that were going to be on every road by 2020, according to all of those fuckers like 10 years ago, and how, everybody's just going to be good at getting their Amazon packages delivered by drones. I'm still waiting on that shit. Still waiting on a bunch of things. But I think it's hilarious is that what he employs right here is what everybody that's full of shit. This is a great business lesson for life. I was not in the fucking shit gutter of startup businesses for very long, but I was there long enough to learn some lessons. You can tell somebody is so full of shit immediately when they'll start saying that something that has no actual date that's ever been announced, and they'll say we're getting closer to it by about 3 to 5 years thanks to this, and it's like, well, when's the projected? Oh, can't say that for sure. Well, how do you know you're getting there 3 to 5 years sooner if you don't know when that goal would be? Well, this is accelerating our growth at X, Y, and Z, and then therefore mathematics and numbers are going to indicate that this is where we will be, right? But like, I mean, again, I could give so many examples. Let's talk about lab-grown meat. Bill Gates has pumped a fuck ton of money into that. Still no closer. It's no cheaper. They can make it. They've always been able to make it. They're trying to make it for cheap. They can't. All these different kinds of things that they keep fucking talking about that they're just like 5 to 10 years away from. It's like, no, you aren't, because you haven't said, like, you know, we're coming out with it now, and now we're coming out with it 5 years sooner. That's what that means. But anyway.
I was just replying to Matt Ocelot in chat. We're about to move on to that next. And thank you so much, Matthew, for the $5. We'd be mining ore on Mars in exchange for Doge script if he had his way. Isn't it Doge coin, right? Am I missing something?
Dogecoin probably has Doge script now. I mean, you know, a non-proprietary, altcoin, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Also, what the frick has Elon Musk actually ever made? He didn't make shit, bro. Like, you think he's the one that made the Tesla stuff or the SpaceX stuff? You think he was his idea, like his fucking blueprint that created the electric vehicle? No, dude, someone else made that, and then he put his name on it and profited massively off of making people think it was his idea. Unfortunately, Elon Musk does not actually create fucking anything except for more money for his own goddamn pockets. That's a sad reality of the situation. He's a total charlatan. There's a lot of, you know, articles about that you can read if you want more details. But yeah, he didn't create any of the technology that he kind of takes credit for. Like, people think of Elon Musk like, oh, the guy who created Teslas and SpaceX. Bullshit. He didn't create a goddamn thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like a Thomas Edison situation, but a little worse, because Thomas Edison was like an inventor. He was kind of a crappy inventor that liked to steal a lot of shit and, like, you know, rip off people's ideas. Like, Elon Musk was just a rich kid that coded a website, made some money, bought another or bought into PayPal, right? And then bought into all these other fucking things. So at the best, you could be like, oh, you know, this guy really innovated payment processing on the internet. It's like, all right, well, he's done a lot of bad shit too, so let me just fucking scratch that, right? You know, and again, yeah, it's just him fucking exploiting and taking credit for the countless engineers. Like, this is essentially, that'd be like, yeah, this is boss logic, right? Like, oh, that the person that owns it is actually responsible for their success. That'd be like saying Steve Jobs invented the smartphone. He fucking didn't. He just took all the credit for it, and he was like, make it smaller, damn it, you worthless piece of shit. Like, people glorify Steve Jobs, but the guy was a real fucking piece of shit. I imagine the same is true with Elon.
Wow, Zach, what a total clown, incapable of critical thought. You think you're cool because you swear every other word? That's so immature, bro.
Yeah, dude, I am enjoying poverty. An oath of poverty. That Jake Hannon, I don't know. This sounds like my mom.
But also, I feel like I skipped over your super chat. Thank you so much, Matthew, for the $5. That is hilarious. And that's another thing. It's like, yeah, bro, when are we gonna fucking get to Mars? I thought that's your big plan. Whenever it does happen, if it ever does, it'll just be rich people, by the way, and all the serfs are just left to, you know, starve and die on the decaying planet Earth. But thank you so much, Matthew, for the $5. We really appreciate that. And thank you, Tool Droid. Exactly, Gavin. His engineers create the vast majority of everything Tesla comes up with. Elon just takes credit for it. And that's especially funny, Zach, because you were kind of comparing him to who were you comparing
Edison.
him to? Edison. And it's funny because his company's literally named Tesla. It's like, it's kind of ironic, right?
Oh, that's yeah, fucking terribly ironic. So yeah, I mean, anyway, he's a fraud, essentially, right? He's just a rich asshole like the rest of them, taking credit for the fucking work that his workers do, right? This is everything we hate about capitalism embodied in one guy. But we've had a lot of cringe on this podcast, Gavin. Do you want to move on to a based story?
Yeah, I do. Just wanted to quickly shout out Dylan. That is a good song by King Giz. Did you hear their new song, Dylan, that just dropped yesterday from their upcoming album? Absolutely love that track. Really, really excited to hear the new album. But yeah, I always love a King Giz reference.
Yeah, shout out to you. Dylan. I also did hear that there actually has been research suggesting that it would actually be easier and better to go to Venus before we go to Mars. So I don't know. Maybe the scientists are right and Elon's wrong, because obviously you can't land on Venus, but it, you know, for other reasons, they were arguing that it actually makes more sense to get there first because you can do it in way less time. You can get a fucking loop from the energy of Venus, and it will actually cut down the time.
Wait, how close is Venus in relation to the Earth compared to Mars? I'm stupid.
Oh, it's like up quite a bit closer.
Interesting. But you said you can't land on it?
No, because it's a gaseous planet.
Then how the fuck would we do anything there if it's just a big ball of gas?
Well, we would fly around it and gain a lot of intelligence from that, and then also you would use it as a essentially as a way of creating energy that would whip you like a slingshot essentially to Mars. Anyway, it was a really interesting article. Fuck if I know if any of it was authentic. I was reading, I mean, it was a fucking science website, but I think I read a link from the AP that took me there. But anyway, I don't know if it's any of it's legit.
I think you got to go to Jupiter to get more stupider, bro.
It's too busy spending time in Uranus with your mom.
Some people are saying though that it's actually not gaseous; it's just super hot. So maybe not.
Guys, I don't know what to tell you. I'm not very smart when it comes to these kinds of things. I never, but I was reading it say that it was too gaseous and fucked up for us to land there. But who fucking knows? Maybe it's not. I don't know. Jupiter, I think, is gaseous, but it's also the biggest planet, so I don't fucking know. Maybe it also has land too. Fuck if I know anything about space at all.
We'll have to invite Neil deGrasse Tyson on the show to educate us about this. But thank you so much, Saul Good, for the $20. Really appreciate that, Saul. That's a super generous donation. Hope you're enjoying the conversation. We're having a lot of fun today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Saul. It's been a great podcast. And also, yeah, can you land on planet Ligma? That was a good one. I'll give you credit for that one. Anyways, super excited to react to this next clip today on the show. I saw this yesterday just by happenstance, and you know, we were talking about this a little bit this morning. How, you know, there's been a very noticeable like pivot in like comedy culture over the last you know, maybe 6 or 7 years. Like the scene was really hot in LA because in no small part due to Joe Rogan operating there, constantly shouting out the comedy store and all that kind of stuff. Then he gets up and moves to Austin. So now you just kind of have this like weird Rogan brigade. And you know, Bill Burr has always kind of been like one of those guys. Like he came up on the Dave Chappelle show. He was always kind of in that world. I think he's always been buddies with those guys. You know, they were constantly around, but he hasn't swallowed the fucking bullshit like they have. He has he never has. Bill Burr, I remember months ago we were giving him props on the show because he's like the one guy that will never, like, he'll still alpha dog Joe Rogan. He doesn't give a fuck. Like Joe Rogan was like first starting talking about like masks and how they like restrict your face, and he was like, would you shut the fuck up, please? I've known you for 30 years and I don't remember you taking 7 of them to go to medical school, so would you just shut the fuck up? And I was like, that's hilarious. But nobody talks to Joe Rogan like that on his show besides Bill Burr, because Bill Burr's a legend. And anyway, in this clip, he comes out fucking swinging against capitalism. I was blown away and stoked to hear it. I've always been a Bill Burr fan, but I definitely became a bigger one after listening to this clip just because I thought it was so tight. Legendary ranter, but yeah.
Let's take a look here. This is super based.
Socialism. Hi, Bill, you redheaded fuck. I really appreciate the bluntness of that. How are you? Last week you mentioned you don't know why people demonize socialism. I was really taken aback at that statement. Oh, Jesus Christ. Every country that has tried socialism has failed, and it's responsible for tens of millions of deaths. All right, so would you say capitalism is working? And it is not, you know, when like, what is it? Like 99% of the wealth is in like fucking 2% of the people's hands. All of these tent cities, you're telling me this is working? You don't think capitalism is responsible for tens of millions of deaths? Anyway, Russia, Germany, China, Cuba, and most recently Venezuela have tried, or right now are socialist countries. As far as I know, whatever Cuba was trying to do, we prevented them from doing with a fucking embargo or whatever the hell we did. We've been fucking with them for 60 years. So I think you're looking at like, you know, like what a lot of people do is you look at your own country through rose-colored glasses the same way you look at your own sports team like, oh, my team doesn't cheat, but your team does.
Based. Yeah. And I just wanted to point that out because a lot of people who are his age and older, and again, not a fucking, age discriminatory comment. It's just the propaganda was so fucking thick for all these people that I imagine that this is like fucking blowing the minds of a lot of his listeners right now. That he's like, not only has he favorably talked about socialism in the past, right? Which he has, and you can find more clips of on him if you're like Bill Burr socialism. The dude just rants on his podcast, so there's basically clips of him talking about everything. But I thought that this was particularly worth noting because he goes to bat for Cuba, which never happens from anybody that is like remotely popular and not Cuban, right? Or you know what I mean? This guy is huge. If he came to your city, he is playing the biggest venue as a stand-up comedian. That's how big of a draw this guy is. And he's out there saying, hey, guys, like, whatever the hell you want to say about Cuba, like, we fucked up whatever they were trying to do, and we fucked up shit all over the place. So why don't you stop just pretending that America's glamorous, and why don't we actually start figuring shit out? Because clearly capitalism isn't working. He was like, oh, is capitalism doing so fucking great? Chef's kiss. Perfect response right there. Flip the script on him, Bill. Bill, he's a legend. You're not going to beat this guy in an argument. And I would love to have this guy as a vocal mouthpiece for socialism.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just such a good point. I mean, it's been made over and over again, but it's like all of the failings of socialism are actually directly applicable and evident in a hyper-capitalist society like the one that we live in. I mean, I was reading the other day about like a food bank that had, lines around the corner hours before it even opened every morning. Like that's something you would expect to hear out of like, oh, like back in the USSR, the bread lines, fucking stretched for miles and miles. Like, nope, that's actually under capitalism. Modern day American hyper capitalism has a massive amount of people on the streets, as Bill Burr referenced. The tent cities. I mean, here in Kansas City, there's homeless people all over the place. It's really sad, et cetera, et cetera. Like all these issues that people ascribe to to socialism are seen right here at home, but no one ever blames capitalism for those issues happening here. It's just crazy.
Yeah, and as Alex says in the chat, if socialism is or I imagine he's saying if socialism is so bad, then why do capitalists murder and sabotage them all? Like because they're afraid of it, right? Like that's why the fuck would we go all the way across the world to Vietnam and try and stop them from having any kind of work or representation? Because if it started there, a lot of other workers were going to get the same idea. Hey, maybe we can just retain the wealth that we are creating with all of our natural resources here on this lovely country and don't have to give it to the Western imperialist. Oh no, can't have people thinking like that. Let's start setting all of their villages on fire and raping their children. Yeah. Oh, but we're the good guys. Yeah. Give me a fucking break.
Yeah, and it does look like there's a second clip too where he talks about the murderous and destructive nature of U.S. imperialism. So let's take a listen to that one too. I haven't seen this part.
You're really sort of looking the other way with what capitalism has done to other countries. All the sweatshop labor, all the wars we've fought in over air quote freedom, where most of it is about, natural resources, all of these fucking countries where we've gone in and, stuck in heads of the government that are going to do what we want to do so we can fucking take advantage of them. Like, I mean, to sit there and look at capitalism like it's, I don't know, dude. All right, I took off my Bergenstock, so I'm going to read the rest of this here. Okay, socialism all starts the same way. Create a boogeyman like...
Also, it has to be said that like most of these people simping for capitalists, like there's no way to know for sure. Obviously, the guy that wrote this question in, he might be a CEO somewhere. He might be raking in six figures, who knows? But I think it's pretty fair to say that a lot of these people that die on the hill of capitalism, that love to defend capitalism and talk shit on socialism, they're working 9-to-5 jobs that they hate. They're they're basically taking part in wage slavery. If it weren't for their occupation or their job, they probably wouldn't have health care. It's crazy how much of how much people simp for these systems that oppress them so directly. It's crazy that in this country you have to rely on having a job in order to have basic human rights like healthcare. That's insane, and it's directly a product of capitalism, again, which oppresses all of the working class. So the fact that people actually simp for these systems of oppression, it just always blows my mind.
Yeah, it reminds me of the Forrest Gump gif where it's like, I'm a capitalist, Forrest, but you ain't got no capital, Lieutenant Dan.
Exactly. Also, thank you so much for the $5. Capitalism brought us slavery to facilitate the trade of sugar and cotton from America. I mean, yeah, absolutely, 100%. That's 100% literal capitalism, and obviously, luckily we don't have slavery the same way now. But now we outsource that slave labor to other countries, where again maybe the conditions are slightly better, but oftentimes not very meaningfully. If you look at some of the sweatshop labor that Bill Burr referenced in other countries, and obviously, like I said, the wage slavery which exists now, not to compare that to chattel slavery, but still telling someone, hey, like if you don't come to this job from 9 to 5 every single day of the week except for Saturday and Sunday, you're not going to have a house to live in, you're not going to have food to eat, you're not going to have health care. Like, is that really all that far removed from slavery? Like, I don't think so.
Oh yeah, no, I mean 100%. Shout out to you, JSOR. Yeah.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, man.
Corporations, the rich, or a race. Oh yeah, we've never done that in this country. We've never created a boogeyman. There's never. I mean, Jesus Christ, buddy. Blame them for all your problems. Yeah, we never did that. The leaders then promised to fix all the problems. Oh, boy. Slowly, the government starts to control every aspect of your life. Why does this sound so familiar? Promise that aren't they like recording all our phone conversations now? And we're slowly on our way to getting microchipped. Promise that everybody will have the same equity and outcome. This creates mediocrity, loss of the middle class. Loss of the middle class. Where have I seen that before? Of innovation, corporations are buying houses now. They're just buying them up so they can fucking Airbnb. Like literally the American dream, buying a house. They're going to take that away in this country. That reduces the tax money coming out into the government. Buddy, I can't fucking read all of this horse shit. This is everything that we're doing too. Capitalism. Okay, I'll get to the end here. Capitalism. No, you know what? Let's just read all of this because it's fucking hilarious that he's acting like none of this is happening in this country. And you know what's funny about people? You don't like it, get the fuck out of here. This is my favorite thing ever. Yet you can look at your sports team and be like, what the fuck is this coach doing? And then nobody goes like, you don't go fucking root for somebody else. No, I'm criticizing it because I love it and I want it to win.
Yeah, this is a great segment. And I think Bill Barr does such a good job. Or sorry, Bill Burr, not Bill Barr. You know what I'm saying? That's like the fucking Trump dude. Anyway, Bill Burr does such a great job here because like he communicates these ideas and these criticisms of capitalism in such a working class kind of way. It's not like you hear him bringing up freaking Marxist Leninism or whatever to make his point about capitalism being bad and being oppressive. He doesn't need to get into all of this like nitty gritty theory. He's just like, yo, all these problems that you're ascribing to this economic system is actually happening right here at home in the most hyper capitalist society ever fucking created. And obviously, it's not to say that every country that is nominally socialist is a perfect utopia. Of course not. They're not above criticism either. But to say that, I mean, again, you can critique socialism if you want, but then don't turn around and pretend like capitalism is a better alternative, right? Like, don't pretend like, oh, capitalism is everything's great here in a capitalist society. No, it's not. Ever been outside? Ever been to freaking West Virginia? Drive through fucking West Virginia or maybe go to Jackson, Mississippi right now. Tell me how well capitalism is working out for those fucking people.
Yeah, I mean, it's gotten to the point where I think it's great that this guy's making the point to his audience, to people who never have that point made to him. I think it's also, it shows that, Bill Burr never lost his head in Hollywood, right? Like he's still looking at the world like a working class guy, I'm just this like fucking redheaded. I think he's like from Boston or whatever, this is how he still sees the world. It's important because I think he, sometimes these ideas aren't made from people like him to his audience ever. And so for him to just lay it out and lay it out in the way that he did, which is to say that it would be like comical to disagree with him because it's just undeniable. Like, you can't, so much homelessness. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, oh, yeah, the government is literally spying on us right now. Like, the fuck do you mean? They will read all of our text messages. They listen to any of our phone calls. Like, this is what the fuck you've been fear-mongering about. Anyway, it was beautiful. It was beautiful. If you haven't, go and listen to Bill Burr's rant on Philadelphia. It's a legendary thing, and it would supplement this quite well. His best bit ever, too.
100%. Hopefully he does get invited back on the Joe Rogan Experience, because I thought the last time was pretty legendary. But yeah, good stuff from Mr. Bill Burr. Have you ever seen the show F is for Family, Zach?
No, I thought you were about to ask me if I'd seen the Orson Welles movie F is for Fake, which I have, but I've never seen F is for Family.
Yeah, it's a Netflix animated show that Bill Burr produced and is the lead voice actor for. So whenever I hear his voice, I can't separate it from that show. I just hear his character in that show talking. But I actually highly recommend the show F is for Family. It has a kind of stupid name. Like when you hear that name, you're like, that sounds lame. But the show is actually really funny. It takes place in like the 70s. Great show. Highly recommend that show if you want to hear Bill Burr voice acting in action. Great character, great show. Highly recommend it. But yeah, big fan of Bill Burr.
Yeah, dude, absolutely. It's kind of like what everybody was hoping Joe Rogan would turn out to be, right? Like a sensible ass fucking person. Just a reasonable guy. Hey, yeah, the world's pretty fucked up right now. Maybe I shouldn't go out and parade all the guys with the like absolute worst ideas for how to get out of this. Maybe I should just present some common sense solutions to the people that write me letters and say crazy shit like you're simping for fucking tyranny when you say socialism might be a better idea than what we've got going on now. Jesus Christ. Yeah, fucking great. What a legend. Super excited to see the full leftist arc of Bill Burr, based Burr, as I'm calling him now.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's not like socialist countries are above criticism. Like if you want to criticize them from like an anarchist perspective or whatever, and be like, there's too much centralized authority or, too much state sponsored violence or whatever, like that's fine. You're more than willing to, or you're more than, you might be able to criticize them for certain things, but to imply that capitalism is a better alternative and that, everything would be better if this country was just hyper capitalized is absolutely ridiculous. Thank you, by the way, Das Bosa Fleisch for the $4.99. Apparently, the University of Munich is participating in building a Hyperloop test track. It will go down the drain like the Transrapid Maglev did. I'll have to look more into that, Das Bosa Fleisch. I'd definitely be interested in hearing more about that. I know when we were referencing the Hyperloop, it was the like Elon Musk version. So I'm guessing if the University of Munich is participating in this one, maybe it'll have better results than just the Elon Musk one, because he always promises shit that he never delivers on. But like I said, I'll have to look more into this one because I'm not quite sure about the specifics.
Yeah, I mean, and also if it's happening in fucking Germany, then I imagine that they'll actually give a shit about their public infrastructure. I mean, Europe actually tends to take that shit seriously. So I would love to see, get that off the ground and actually have a demonstrable, like, oh, this is how you could do this and implement it in other countries too. So definitely. But yeah, as we said with fucking Elon Musk, it's kind of like his boring company. He just admitted that, I just didn't want this specific like fucking transit to be built. So I lobbied to do this thing that I knew I was never going to do. And that basically threw water on the public transportation.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you so much, Das Bosa Fleisch. I'll have to look more into that. Thank you so much for letting us know, though. Also, thank you for the $19.99 Tool Droid. That's super generous. Really appreciate the support, Tool Droid. Canada has a higher life expectancy rates, lower infant mortality rates, and better health outcomes than America. This is a laughable myth that capitalism means better health care. 100% true. Cuba also has like a freaking vaccine for lung cancer. Again, like you said, universal health care. It's absolutely crazy. And like I see someone in the chat. Again, no offense. I mean, thanks for sharing your opinion, but they're saying like capitalism is better because liberty and socialism kills liberty. This is the kind of talking points you hear a lot from from fucking capitalists. And again, I mean, I appreciate you sharing your perspective in a environment where we're, you know, pushing back on this idea. But as Tool Droid says here, I would define this stuff as liberty. You know, freedom and liberty. Yeah, my ability to live a healthy, happy life, and you know, get health care when I need it, and get, you know, help when I need it. Like I would personally consider that liberty, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've never felt like the fire department was like just imposing like restrictions on my liberty. Like I've never felt that way. The police for sure, but for wildly different reasons, not the fact that they're fucking funded by the taxpayer dollars. Like you ever go in the library and just feel like fucking terrible? You're like, "Oh my god, the fucking big brother is looking down on me, man. I hate being in here. It's a library." Like this would be so much better if I was at Barnes and Noble and I got to pay $40 before I left, only to not read the shit anyway, right? No, we have libraries for that. Like it doesn't impose on your freedom at all. All that socialism is, guys, is that, but with better and more opportunity. Like the military is socialism. It's just the worst Machiavellian, fucking destructive form of socialism that you could possibly imagine, right? Like Gavin and I want to invert that. We want to, you know, instead of using it as becoming the most elite killing machine force in human history, which is what our U.S. military is, we could use it to take care of all of our fucking citizens. We could use it to actually like try and cure illnesses, right? Instead of prioritizing treatment, which is absolutely what happens. And that's why we don't come up with a lot of cures now, because there's no money in cures. There's money in treatment. All those different kinds of things could be solved. It could be alleviated. You could take care of everybody. Hey, that sounds like a winner to me. All those kinds of things. And as Tool Druid puts it, like we have horrible, horrible, horrible life expectancy rates in America. And we have the most ardently capitalist healthcare system possible. It's like there's a reason for that.
Yeah, and I would just, you know, I understand your point about the military being socialism, but I would push back a little bit just because like the military industrial complex is definitely a manifestation of capitalism in the sense that we're funneling all this money to like private contractors, which are extorting us for their own profit, if that makes sense, versus what you're suggesting would actually be a return to real socialism, like using our, you know, taxpayer money to give back to the people versus handing it out to all of these corporations.
Yeah, although I would just say that under the Medicare for All plan, it's not like we're abolishing the private, you know, pharmaceutical companies. We're just, you know, caring for everyone. And I would still call Medicare for All socialism. And the other point that the military, when it comes to like research and development, is like massively, massively socialist, because that's one of the few things that we still do internally, right? As because we don't want it. But I mean, not 100%. We were talking to Tyrell about how one of the ways they've gotten around like the fucking legality of having to like let people know what's happening. Is the fact that they'll actually, even the most like fucking crazy shit, they will outsource to a private company. So I hear your point and what you're saying. But yeah, I was just trying to illustrate that, like, you know, when we actually do put our tax dollars towards something that we actually, you know, invest in as a nation and produce nationally, it's only ever fucking nefarious.
Right, and I agree with that. But just to be honest, I also think that Medicare for All, I don't think Medicare for All is pure socialism either. Like, I mean, you're still giving money to private companies, and I think we should work towards like a national health service, which would be socialist. But I see your point. It's a step closer.
Mixed market socialism, sure, but still socialism, right? I mean, that would be, I mean, nationalizing everything. I mean, I don't think you have to nationalize everything for it to be under the umbrella of socialism, right? I would support nationalizing everything, but I feel like that would become like, you know, like I think you could describe, you know, a place like Finland as a socialist country, even though obviously they still, you know, have a mixed market. You know what I mean?
Well, I would say the elements of their society are socialist. So I guess, yeah, mixed market. That makes sense. Anyway, thank you so much, Tool Droid. Really appreciate the 1999. Really appreciate the generous donation. And thank you also, Matt Ocelot God. Really appreciate it. As always, Matt Ocelot God for the $5. As founder of all things comedy, a worker co-op, Bill Burr is legit a socialist in practice. I didn't know that he had a co-op that he founded. Did you know about that, Zach?
No, I didn't. Let me Google that right now, though, because that's based. All Things Comedy sounds familiar. I guess I guess they have a podcast, but yeah, he founded it. It's a digital media studio home. Oh yeah, hey, it looks like it's like a comedy kind of like podcast network that he's on, and a bunch of other comedians. And I imagine that, you know, they all share whatever income comes from that if it's a co-op.
Damn, that's super based. I had no idea. Bill Burr is even better now. That's freaking awesome. I mean, It's one thing to talk about socialism. It's another thing to actually form your own business in a socialist way as a co-op. So that's really freaking cool. The more I find out about Bill Burr, the more impressed I am.
Yeah, I mean, not only that, but I was listening to his most recent stand-up special, and the guy might be one of like the funniest comedians in the game right now. He constantly is able to make like good observation where he's like still talking about relevant shit. He doesn't go back to the same well all the time. A lot of times comedians, when they've been doing this for like 20 years, you kind of know what they're going to talk about when they go up there. They have like a fucking thing that they talk about, and oh, I'm a wife guy and I make jokes about my family, or oh, I'm this guy. And he kind of picks from an interesting and like unique cadre of topics, or I don't know what I'm saying, but anyway, he's diverse and eclectic, and he doesn't like censor himself. Like he's not like afraid of like wokeness, but he's also not a fucking piece of shit, so it never really comes up. I don't know. I just think he's like an embodiment of like, oh, you can still be like a titan in fucking comedy, and just play by your own way.
Yeah, 100%. So that's super cool. And yeah, good stuff from Bill Burr. Big fan of his voice too. Like I said, he just has such a great voice. Great for voice acting, like in that show I mentioned. Great for comedy and podcasting. So yeah, good segment. We do have a special guest today that just entered our live stream. Oh, also thank you so much, Evil 1911. Really appreciate the $10. Come on, guys. We all know it's about MAGA communism now. Oh my god. If I can. Oh, I wonder if we have time to quickly play this. There's this clip of Haas Infrared, who's like the founder of MAGA communism, and he was like at a freaking Trump rally asking some like random fucking Trump supporter lady about MAGA communism, and she was like, that sounds like a lie by the left, immediately disproving his notion that it was something that could be a uniting element among the working class. I gotta find this real quick. I think I have it right here. Oh god, come on. Hopefully I do. Yeah, I got it. Thank you so much for the super chat though, because yeah, MAGA communism is amazingly hilarious. Here you go. This is the reality of MAGA communism when you try to unite the working class around it.
The big money, the big businesses are creating a corporate socialism to make sure the little guy never gets any prosperity to challenge them.
Right.
But what do you think about this new idea, which a lot of MAGA people are coming around to? Crazy, but they're calling it MAGA communism to fight the corporate socialism.
Like I said, that is what the left is saying. They make it up. They everything they say most of them are lies.
But it seems like from the people I talk to, it's more conservative, and it's not to have the government control everything, but it's to make sure the government steps in and tells Bill Gates, no, you can't buy our farmland. That's for farmers to grow food.
Well, Bill Gates is going to be caught for treason, and he'll have to give back our land.
Yeah.
That will happen. And
land should be for Americans, not for money. The big money, the big businesses.
It's so funny because he's just straight up lying. Like no conservatives. We've given countless examples of every conservative that's proposed with this. Anything with communism they don't want to hear about. It's an ick word for them. And he's still barking up that tree. It's like it's a complete fucking farce, but that almost unreal. It's beyond parody. It seems like it should be like a Channel 5 kind of a dig, but no, this is him out there being like, I'm sensibly trying to do this. Like, oh my god, unreal.
Yeah, super crazy. And as someone in our chat, I guess we have a member of MAGA here now in present in conversation. I am MAGA, and my life mission is to defeat you. Full disclosure, MAGA communism can't be more idiotic. So here we have a real life MAGA in the flesh.
A MAGA in the Das Bosch flesh.
Exactly. Anyway, I'm so sorry to our special guest because we're 5 minutes past the time that we said we would invite her on now. And we do have Miss Zeynab Day coming on to discuss the protests in Iran. Super excited to talk. How's it going, Zeynab?
Hey guys, sorry my lighting was broken, so I look all,
Very Halloween themed, festive. We're
Yes,
into it.
exactly, very festive. But yes, that was worth the 5 minutes to actually hear Haas try to talk to people. I've talked to like 33,000 voters, 30,000 voters, something like that, over like 75 campaigns. The biggest thing is you avoid the buzzwords. This is like combining the two buzzwords into something that is not going to reach people. You reach people with issues. And I've talked to conservatives, I've talked to mostly independents because most people are independent. That's the thing. They're trying to unite the two fringes, and it's totally, totally crazy. But yes, that was worth the 5 minutes just to see him try to talk to somebody about it.
Yeah, super funny. I said when we initially reacted to the whole thing that it was like going to a Trump rally and saying I'm a Joe Biden communist. Like, not only is that completely oxymoronic, but also it's just going to turn off any of the working class Trump supporters that you're trying to connect with. Like, why even use that word if you're trying to connect with or build coalitions with these people? It's completely counterproductive in every way. And obviously, I'm for uniting the working class. Like, if you want to go to a freaking Trump rally and say like, hey, here's some ideas that I think we could, work together on and defeat the corporations or something. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. Obviously, there is a lot of common ground between the working class, whether it's on the left or the right. A lot of people are just so propagandized that they don't realize that. So there's nothing wrong with like the idea of trying to unite the working class, but it's just done. This is just such an obvious grift because, again, this is the exact opposite way to do it.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. But I guess, Gavin, did you have a specific question that you wanted to kind of set the table with? I know we've got Zeynab on today to talk about obviously the turmoil that's unfolding in Iran.
Yeah, so I've seen you tweeting a lot about this protest movement happening in Iran, Zaina. So I wanted to just set the stage by talking or reading a little bit out of this article from Democracy Now! Iran protests continue for 16th day. Group says 133 people have died so far. So this is a massive, fairly unprecedented protest movement, at least as far as like modern day Iran goes, in my understanding. Sunday marked the 16th day of consecutive protests in Iran following the death of Masha Amini, a 22-year-old Kurdish woman who died after she was detained by the so-called morality police. Again, it's crazy that's even a thing. It sounds like literally something out of like a George Orwell novel, the morality police, for allegedly violating Iran's hijab law. According to the Norway-based group Iran Human Rights, 133 people have been killed since the protest began. On Sunday, police fired tear gas and paintballs at student protesters in Tehran. Meanwhile, the Committee to Protect Journalists reports at least 28 journalists and photographers have been arrested covering the protest. So, I mean, that's kind of just a basic, what's going on in Iran. I know that you have been tweeting a lot about this, Zaina, and, in support and solidarity with the protesters. And I know you received a little bit of pushback. Do you want to talk about that and, the perspective that you were trying to share?
Sure. I think one of the biggest issues that I'm seeing is a Western worldview, and people placing all their different types of Western worldviews onto their understanding of Iran. So just a little bit of background. My father was an Iranian immigrant. He actually came, I was born just before the Shah fell, literally a month before the Shah fell. And so, I've been hearing about this all my life. Assets were frozen after the Shah fell, and my father was struggling finishing school, because my family, something you do is you help put people through school, so they froze my family's assets. They also, I was on the 9/11 watch list because my real last name is Abdullahi. So the impacts of not only the Western meddling in Iran, we've been feeling it. I felt it as an Iranian American here on our soil. And so the people in Iran are fully aware of the fact that there has been American meddling, and we don't want it. We do not want American meddling. But these protests are not just from what's happening now. They've been escalating for the last 43 years, right? When Khomeini was put into power, when this theocratic regime was elected, well, not elected, but put into power after the Shah fell, there was an understanding that there was going to be a democratic process. There was going to be a parliament, that they were going to heighten democracy, even greater democracy than was under the Shah. But we've seen the opposite. We've seen, great wealth go into the hands of into the hands of the theocratic regime. We've seen the suppression of labor unions, the suppression of worker rights. We've seen, so in small towns in Iran, they're set up this way where they're almost a mini socialist state within themselves. It's kind of amazing. They grow community gardens, they share. There is this huge sense of community. They almost live on what we can call right now like a mutual aid network, right? And that has been taxed, and their produce was confiscated, and they've been trying to break down that tradition that's been, you know, part of the Persian culture and the Iranian culture for, you know, centuries and centuries. And so we're seeing increased poverty, but then also the symbolism of this theocratic regime really is the oppression of women. The symbolism is the hijab, right? And so Masa Amani's death sparked that. It sparked this outcry against the theocratic regime, but it's bigger than just her death, even though her death is profoundly important. It's similar to what, if I can compare it to anything, to what we saw with the death of George Floyd here and our pushback against rampant police brutality, incarceration. You know, we saw unions coming in, we saw people fighting. It was a class struggle. It broke down to a class struggle. And that's what is happening in Iran. It's a class struggle with the people and the theocracy, who is still selling oil to America despite these sanctions. The other sanctions are impacting the people. So we don't want more sanctions. We also don't want American meddling. And we do want the Iranians want freedom from this theocratic regime. All of these things are true, but there's a sentiment, especially among the left, and you know, some of those MAGA communist folks, as we mentioned earlier, but others, that okay, so Iran, I guess it was about a month and a half ago, built a coalition with China and Russia, right? And so because they're working with China and Russia, that's a step closer to the multipolar world. So Iran must be good and their government must be good. And so there's leftists that believe this. And then there's liberals that are saying things like, don't discriminate because women in Iran want to wear hijabs. And I'm like, that's not, most of Iran is secular. For one thing, there's multiple religions. There's Christianity, there's secularism, so non-religion, and then there's a huge amount of people that are Zoroastrian or from Zoroastrian roots, which is more of a secular belief system than it is a religion. So Iran, the majority is secular, even though we'll see, of course, surveys of Iranians that now say 99% of them are Islamic. That's not true. And it's not that Iranians have an issue with people who are Islamic. It's the freedom of choice and to practice no religion or a religion if you want to, or to be able to, you know, the laws against rape have loosened. The laws against child marriage have loosened, kind of like they are here. There's no pro-choice when it comes to abortions. A lot of women have been talking about that in these protests. So the hijab is the symbol of oppression. And the women are standing up to lead in this fight because they've been some of the most impacted, as well as many other. There's a lot of different groups of individuals from, you know, backgrounds that are regional, right? Such as the Kurds. And so the Kurdish people have been more oppressed than other groups in Iran. And so the fact that she was Kurdish has also given rise to the Kurds standing up. But this isn't, I'm hearing rumors that it's just, even the New York Times was talking about how it's mostly in the cities, and it's mostly, they were kind of undermining the struggle in the New York Times. It's not. It's been spread all across Iran. It's wide sweeping, and it's not something that happened overnight. These revolutions have been going on for the last 30 years.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it sounds like a proper parallel to be kind of what erupted in the streets of America with the George Floyd protest. Obviously, we'd had other instances throughout our history where people had protested. There was Ferguson, there was way back in the 90s, there was the Rodney King, but the time was right for people to kind of uprise, and it seems like that's along the lines of what you're describing. This was the catalyst for the simmering water that just broke to a boil.
Absolutely. And go ahead, Zena.
Oh no, I was just going to say absolutely, and I was going to add one more thing to that, is that there's so many, I saw Max Blumenthal weighing in on this, Richard Medhurst weighing in on this, and it's all assumptions. They're pulling a whole bunch of stuff out of thin air and not talking to the people. He did have someone on from the theocratic regime. Why doesn't he have someone on from the protesters to talk? Because people want to prescribe their Western worldview, and they also act like Iranians can't think for themselves, that we don't realize that there's American imperialism. Are you kidding me? That, I've got to go out there and convince my fellow Iranians that this is all MIK and MEK and CIA. And I'm like, no, it's not, though. It's not.
Right. Well, and that's the thing. It's like a lot of people, when you try to talk about this stuff, the same thing happened when Zach brought this up. There was protests in Cuba not too long ago, and people tried to express solidarity with some of the protesters because in some ways they were fighting back against genuine authoritarianism. I mean, there are authoritarian aspects to Cuba, even though it's in many ways way better than America. No one's denying that. But people will say like, well, why are you giving into these CIA narratives, or why are you repeating these narratives that help enable regime change? Because a lot of people would point out that America wants to intervene in Iran. There's been saber rattling and warmongering as far as our policy with Iran goes for a long time. The Republicans are, dead set against us rejoining the Iran deal, for example. And it's just so reductive, though, because obviously we're all here on the left. None of us support U.S. intervention in any way, shape, or form. None of us support the U.S. doing a goddamn thing in Iran, even if the government is incredibly authoritarian. Like, even if it's 100% a theocracy and authoritarian, which it is, I still don't support any U.S. involvement or intervention whatsoever. That's off the table. And I think that goes for all three of us. Obviously, none of us would ever support that due to any justification. All we're trying to say is that, yeah, we stand in solidarity with these protesters, with these women who are being denied their basic human rights and are literally being murdered for letting some of their hair slip out of their hijabs. That's crazy. This is basically just taking a stand against theocracy and authoritarianism. And of course, yeah, I stand in solidarity with those women and those protesters. I think that's a pretty obvious position. And again, the kind of lack of nuance that you're describing from certain commentators when they talk about this is really just strange to see coming from people that purport to be anti-fascist, people that purport to be on the left.
It's really been mind-boggling, but there has been a rise of pro-authoritarian sentiment among the left. If I'm sure you guys have noticed, and in general, it's been troubling to me. And there's also binary thinking. So there's people that are now like, I support the Republicans because Bernie broke his promises, and I'm like, are you kidding? They're all they're all bad. Like, why is there's a lack of nuance? But one of the most important things is these journalists. These people who have a platform, Iran can use that when they're doing reporting saying that there's American meddling. They're using this right now to jail and murder protesters. They're actively using it. So if you're spreading rhetoric that you're uneducated on, you could literally be helping the regime to have a reason to kill people. And that's not okay. So, there's a responsibility, a social responsibility when you have a platform to do some research. I'm a journalist. Do your research. Like, take the time and don't just create the clickbait headlines when people's lives are at stake, when it's something as radical as this. And sometimes regime change needs to happen. It needs to happen. We want regime change here, but that should be up to us and the people, and it should be a democratic process. And we don't want a regime change to go to the right, which is what we're getting right now. That's what we're getting with the abortion laws. That's what we're getting with folks like DeSantis. That's what we have with our immigration laws. We're marching toward theocracy right now in the United States, and we want that to change. We want regime change. So if you want to just completely be against any kind of regime change and the people rising up against that, that's completely counterintuitive to what we're trying to do here in the United States right now in fixing our systems. So I don't understand why there's a lack of solidarity with people who are rising up to stand up for themselves.
Yeah, and just to clarify, because people are going to take you in as bad faith as possible, you're saying regime change, like from the people themselves changing the regimes, not from any outside forces coming in to do that.
Yes, I mean us.
Yeah.
I mean the working class rising up to, to fix our electoral systems, to build co-ops, mutual aid networks, to start to focus on local politics, what's happening in our state houses, what's happening for instance, in Alabama, just this month, they rolled back the age of marital consent, I believe, to the age 13. And in the same law, they said that marital rape isn't rape. So what's their intentions there? So you can marry a 13-year-old and now all of a sudden they can't claim marital rape? Like that's theocracy. And so, when I look at that, and I understand that we're not as extreme, and I understand that in some ways we are, I can see parallels and I can relate, and my heart hurts for the people of Iran. I haven't been able to go over there and hug my family because of the tensions between Iranians and Americans, and because I'm slightly a public figure, so my family is afraid for me to go there. But I talk to them, and what I have been told my entire life is that, my father was Muslim, so I was raised Muslim, but many in Iran are secular. Most of my family are secular, and they should have the right to practice a religion or not practice a religion. Gays shouldn't be rounded up and be killed, and that's happening. 133 people have died. Teenagers have died. There was a teenager that died 2 weeks ago, and her mother just killed herself today.
Damn, that's so sad to hear. And again, it's just crazy that anyone that would purport to be against fascism or authoritarianism, anyone that claims to be on the left would somehow be against people protesting against their own authoritarian government, against theocracy, which we obviously should all be against, because as you said, I mean, a lot of theocratic laws and policies are being instituted here in America, and we fight back against those. We fight back against the banning of abortions, for example, and what you said about the absolutely insane rolling back of the marital age of consent to 13. I mean, you want to talk about grooming? That's grooming. That's pedophilia. That's disgusting. And yeah, no one in any part of the world should have to deal with the religion being forced on them in this violent and oppressive way. So, thanks for explaining a little bit and kind of sharing your perspective as an Iranian woman. I think that's really important for people to hear.
And Gavin, I was also going to say, and I don't know what happened to Zach, but maybe he'll be
He had to
back
leave for work. Sorry about that.
Oh, did he? Okay.
Yeah.
Paul. But I was going to add something that's really important. If you're an American and you want to support, vet your news sources. Read what you're reading. Don't just discount mainstream because it's mainstream, but be very hyper vigilant about, what you're reading, because you're going to find facts even in mainstream news. You're going to find facts in independent news. Like, of course, I'm not pro mainstream media. Don't get me wrong. I'm definitely not. But just be vigilant about what you're reading. Be careful what you share. And for God's sakes, don't go around schooling Iranians on Iran. Like, drop the arrogance, the Western arrogance. And lastly, don't support sanctions. If we're going to be for something here, we should be against the sanctions to help them. We should also be very hyper aware that it's very likely that this administration actually supports this regime because they profit off of it. So even though they're, like you said, saber rattling and acting like there's opposition, they actually support this regime. And if you start reading some of the mainstream media, you'll notice that. And so we have to realize that with politics, there's theater, but when people rise up, when there's millions of Iranians rising up, that's not political theater. That's people fighting for their lives. And there's a difference between those two things.
Absolutely. Well, also, thank you so much, Nikki, for the $4.99. Really appreciate that. Been a while since I caught a live show. Just wanted to say hi. And thanks again for the good content. Well, thank you so much, Nikki. Really appreciate the kind comment and super chat. Glad you're enjoying the show. Hope you enjoyed hearing from Zeynab. And also, I wanted to give you a quick chance to shout out. I saw on Twitter that you're starting an independent news outlet. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. I'm going to be rolling out something called Bullhorn Bulletin. And I'm going to be launching it on Friday. And I'm hoping to start a website. What I would like to do is to create a platform where we can go and we can find like a ton of leftist content creators who are on there in one space where we can go and we can follow them. And we almost have I wouldn't call it a co-op model, but we have a space where we can go and we can find news. I'll also be creating original content, and I'll be doing something a little bit unique. I'm going to be labeling the different content. Some of it's going to be straight news, and I'm going to say straight news. If it's punditry, I'm going to label it punditry. You know, if it's satire, we're going to do some satire. It's going to be labeled that. And the reason is because I think punditry and news have kind of washed. And that's part of the problem with just getting straight information. So I would like to do some news reports on campaign finance, what's happening in the states, like what I had mentioned today about Alabama, because we're so focused on federal elections that right now our states are just taking rights away left and right. They're union busting. They're passing right to work laws. They're implementing theocracy. It's a problem. And the right wing are actually taking state houses that used to be, you know, purple or, you know. And another thing that I was wanting to do, or I was hoping that we could do with Bullhorn Bulletin, is start to train independent journalists later on down the road. So have maybe 1 or 2 summits a year where we get together and folks can learn about sourcing. They can learn about building stories. They can learn about, you know, social responsibility. They can learn about things like how do you monetize if you're an independent journalist, and encouraging a lot more local journalism because newspapers are dying. And I'm a print nerd journalist, total print nerd here. And so I feel like that's part of why we're losing news and why conspiracy theories have become news and people are so confused. Also, our algorithms on social media feed us things, and they may be true, they may not be true, and we end up getting in these echo chamber bubbles. So I'm hoping to be able to, you know, create content myself, bring on more journalists to create content, do some training and cultivate journalists. Gavin, I don't know if you went to school for journalism or you have that background, but those skills are important. And I've seen a lot of people call themselves citizen journalists, and that's great and exciting. But then I'm watching them, I'm like, you haven't sourced, you're not confirming, like, you know. And if they had those basic tools on how to do that, I think we'd see a lot more. I think it would thrive a lot more in the independent media community. So it's a little bit of all of that. We'll see how it goes. I'm broke as hell. I'm a single mom. I'm poor, so I'm not like a Kim Iverson who can, you know, take a year off work to start a channel and become a libertarian leftist, apparently. But I am gonna try to do the thing just like the Vanguard did, and hopefully we can do some on the ground journalism too. I know that you guys are great. I think Status Quo does good on the ground work. So, and you know, RBN I think does good like educational pieces. So we've got some great folks out there, but the more that we can get and the more we can get trained, I think more for the better. And I also want to platform activists and organizers. So guys, DM me if you have something that you want promoted on the channel. If you're building a union in your local area, if you're organizing for mutual aid, if you're door knocking for ballot measures for tenants' rights, whatever it might be, you can find me at Zeynab Day, Zeynabday on Twitter. And please send that to me because I'm really looking to platform folks that are doing actions to help get their voices out there.
Damn, that's super exciting. And please reach out when the Bullhorn Bulletin actually launches. We'd love to have you back on to talk more about that because I think it's such a great idea, you know, as far as educating more people, teaching them the ropes of journalism. No, I did not go to journalism school. I don't even consider myself a journalist, to be honest. I just consider myself a muckraker on the internet, you know, but that is really important work that needs to be done. And that education is super important. So shout out to you, Zeynab, for putting in that hard work. You know, as a working class person, we need more voices like yours. I really appreciate the nuance you bring to conversations. You're not demagogic. Like you said, you're not in favor of echo chambers, which I do see so much of these days. So, you know, huge shout out. Hope that everything is well. And thank you so much for coming on the Vanguard. Looking forward to chatting again in the near future.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for asking questions about Iran. I really, really appreciate it. And also, folks, if you want to follow what's going on with Iran, follow at Moz Frame, at MOZFRAME. Moz is amazing, and I've been getting a lot of my information from him. And he was born and raised in Iran, and he's a leftist activist, and he's also a badass. So go check him out for content on Iran right now, because he's keeping things really updated.
Sweet. Yeah, 100%. Well, thank you so much for educating me too. I mean, the reason we had you on is because I don't know what the hell's going on in Iran. You know, I can read a few Democracy Now! Articles, but I feel like, you know, you know a lot more about what's going on than me. So I really appreciate you sharing your perspective with the audience and with me and educating all of us today. So again, thank you so much. Looking forward to chatting again in the near future, Zeynab.
Thanks, Gavin. Y'all have a good day.
Yeah, see you around.
Bye.
And here I am left without Zach because he had to go to work at the bar. So it's just me now, guys. Get ready for the show to actually start. No, I'm just kidding. I'm about to get out of here. Huge shout out to the patron community. I hope you guys enjoyed that interview. I thought it was really insightful chatting with Zeynab about the protests in Iran and her new news media venture. Super exciting stuff. Big fan of her commentary and content. Seems like a really level-headed lady. So again, shout out to you, Zeynab, and shout out to the patron community. If you guys enjoy the content we create here in the Vanguard, the conversations that we have, the perspective that we share, then it really, really does help out if you support us on Patreon. .com/the Vanguard channel. We do like to start and end all of our live streams with a big shout out to our patrons because they do make the show possible. So thank you so much again for the support, guys. It really, really means a lot. It helps keep us afloat, especially when there's, you know, the censorious algorithm and all of this, you know, stamping down of leftist independent media. Patrons make this show possible 100%. So thank you so much. The link's in the description. If you're interested in joining our patron community and supporting the show, that is one great way to do it. So we really, really appreciate that. So again, thank you guys so much. And I'm going to get out of here. Hope you enjoyed the show today. We'll see you next time.